This video provides an overview of the JDistil security module. For detailed information on the JDistil framework and other supporting demos, please refer to the JDistil.com website. So we'll first start with our JDistil demo application. And obviously, security module is a module that's included when an application is created using the JDistil Eclipse plugin. And so the login page here is provided as part of the security module. We're going to log in as the admin. Other features provided by the security module are the ability for the logged on user to change his or her password, the ability to log off the system, and then also some maintenance facilities for managing users. Here we can filter users, paginate through them, sort them, add, edit, delete. If we look at this, we have a minimum set of user attributes that we can define, and more importantly, we can define one or more roles for a given user. And then we look at role maintenance. We can see we have the ability per role to manage tasks within an application. And a task is basically, a task can represent one or more actions within an application. In the case of the modules that are included, so the codes module and the security modules, and then application fragments that are created using the Eclipse plugin, all CRUD-based actions are grouped together into a single task. So managing users would include viewing users, adding, editing, deleting users. So those are all grouped together. Again, you can create your own tasks that are associated with a single action. For instance, print report would be an example, something along those lines. So the other elements that can be managed are fields associated with the domain objects or application fragments. We'll refer to both of those kind of synonymously, but here we've chosen to restrict the shipper field to being read-only for a purchase order. And for order detail, we've made discount read-only, and we've restricted all to the shipping field so the user can't see the shipping field. Okay, so let's get out here for a second. So we have these security functions and the maintenance of users and roles. And then what we also have, so all of the security is tied in. Let's jump over to the actual demo application. So here we have our application. Here are all our classes, custom classes for the application. Here we have SQL. So we have our core SQL for the framework. And then we have some security module specific SQL. This security sets up the underlying tables supporting the security module. And then permission SQL basically defines an admin user and establishes the entitlements associated with that user. So it's the SQL, it's the pages. So here's user maintenance, viewing users, editing users, viewing roles, editing roles. We have our logon page and our change password page. And then we have libraries, right? And these libraries support all those security functions that we just discussed. In addition, there is a security manager implementation that's provided. So the core framework is security for the core framework is based upon a pluggable security manager. So here you can see that we're specifying the security manager factory for the security module. So if we choose to create our own security manager or extend, for instance, the security manager provided by the security module, we can do so and just specify a valid factory class here. So, and then everything else is somewhat transparent, right? So all the UI components will leverage the application defined security manager and determine whether or not, for instance, action components will reference the security manager to see if that action is associated with a restricted task. And if so, then the action, depending upon what it is, will either not be included in the UI or be disabled. Those are things like menus, buttons, etc. From a field perspective, so value components, those value components will leverage the security manager to ensure that the field itself is not marked or specified as being read-only or restricted. If so, that UI component will generate will generate content accordingly, right? So if it's read-only, then it would be a read-only field. If it was restricted, then it would be read-only, but it would mask the data so that the user couldn't see the data, right? And so you get that inherently by just specifying a security manager. It's just that the security module has its own security manager, and obviously tables to support managing users, those roles, and the tasks and fields associated with those roles, the entitlements. Okay, so let's jump back to the application, and let's just capture this URL for a second. This is the view roles, for instance. Okay. So preemptively, if we log out, and we log back in as John Doe, who has a sales role, we can see that preemptively we cannot manage users and roles, right? So the UI leveraged the security manager, figured out that the authenticated user, who was John Doe, had a sales role, and that sales role is restricted from accessing users and roles. Also, we go in and we look at purchase orders. We can see that shipper is disabled. We cannot click the button. Additionally, in order details, we'll see that shipping is restricted, so it's a masked value. If we go into the page itself, we can see that it's still masked and not editable. And discount was read-only, so it's not editable. Right? So this is all, the components inherently give you this ability just by plugging in the security manager, whether that be the one provided by the security module, or if you choose to extend that or roll your own. So we captured that URL for viewing roles. So if we were to take that and try to, so there's two things right before I get into this. So that's preemptive security that's handled by the UI components by leveraging the security manager. That same security manager is also leveraged on the back end when data is submitted, right? So if we, for instance, pull this up, even if we were able to spoof this value or this value and save it, the backend is smart enough to know that those are read-only restricted, and it will avoid updating those fields, right? The same occurs for actions, right? So if we copy and paste in that URL for viewing roles, which we don't have access to, we'll get a security exception, right? So this is really the only time we'll see an exception. In the case of fields, they're just ignored and not updated if someone tries to spoof them. Okay. So again, just to recap, let's log out and we'll cover those. Just to recap, we have a security module which provides a custom security manager. We have these UI components, or these security interfaces. So for logon, for changing password, logging off, and then obviously for managing users and managing roles. And those are all tied into the security module's implementation of the security manager interface. So that's pretty powerful in terms of what you can manage just by changing a role and specifying what tasks and fields are accessible. So for additional information on the JDistil framework, please refer to the JDistil.com website. Thanks.